Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ascend TV. I'm your host, Dr. Leslie Cadet, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Subena Colligan, the founder of Environmental Health and Safety Consultants, a leading EHS firm that helps clients navigate, implement, and develop their own occupational environmental health and safety program. Subena, welcome so much to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Cadet. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, a lot of our listeners are employers who are running their own companies and they have a number of employees and they're looking for ways to improve the safety of the work environment. And could you start by telling us a little bit about your current role within workplace safety?
Absolutely. So I'm in love with the space that I get to be in, the space that I get to occupy with my team. And we really focus on transforming health and safety programs from checking the box or wherever you are, from good to great. And it's a space that we occupy because a lot of times, especially with startups and the startup culture that we have, we're worried about the return on the initial investments, return for our shareholders or private equity, whoever that may be. Safety does not provide that level of return and that initial startup. However, if you want to keep your profits going forward, you need a safety program. So we really focus on where you are today, where you need to go in order to provide a safe workplace for your employees. And then we do all the work in between to help fill the gap. However, what we can't do is make the commitment. And that's where our business owners and our executives really have to step up to the plate, is making a commitment to workplace safety, and then they can have a partner to do the rest.
Now, Subena, are you all providing services nationwide, or is there a specific area of the U.S. that you all provide services to?
So we are in the United States and Canada. So across the board, we have quite a few clients that have multiple locations. And so we are bridging the gaps in between for them too, so that there's a consistency in the way that their programs are being upgraded and rolled out.
That is so good. Now, how did you get your start in occupational safety and health?
So the Air Force, and in the Air Force, we would have been on the same Prev Med team or preventative medicine team.
Yes, we would have.
So, which is super exciting. And so I was an industrial hygienist in the Air Force. And what that is focusing on occupational health. So we have pretty much the invisible hazards of the workplace, the gases, vapors, fumes, the noise and the vibrations, the heat. Even though it doesn't feel invisible, we can't necessarily see the heat. So we really focused on, that's industrial hygiene. And that was where I started, and eventually, after leaving the Air Force, moved into corporate America, manufacturing, research and development, before starting my own firm.
That is so good. And for those who are watching, both Subena and I were in the Air Force. And so there's a lot of collaboration between the physicians and the industrial hygienists. And it really is a beautiful thing, I would say, Subena, because we are each looking at the same problem through different lenses. And that allows us to magnify the solutions that we're able to offer our employer at the time, which was the Air Force.
Absolutely. So when I left the Air Force and went into corporate America, I don't know if you saw this too, Dr. Cadet, but there were shifts in the way occupational medicine was utilized in the workforce. And so in the Air Force, we had monthly meetings. What are the trends that are happening? Is public health seeing something? Are the flight docs seeing something? Are the industrial hygienists having some concerns? Is there just something random like, hey, don't know if anybody else knows this. We'll just throw that out there and see if there's a thing. If it's a thing, it may not be. But we collaborated so well But in corporate America, what I learned is that we have these occupational health clinics for the most part that have contracts, and they don't actually get to know the processes. There were so many safety and health programs that my preventative medicine doctors knew about. They were reviewing, and they knew that when they saw their patients, and they could say, this could be an issue. And so I wish that more corporations got to experience that level of care for their employees.
Absolutely. And it can be something simple like just doing site visits where you're involving both industrial hygiene and occupational medicine, the safety folks. Go look at the workspace together and just talk about what you're observing. So I agree with you. I think if more corporations could start doing a collaborative model, that also would be a game changer for safety and being able to maintain their profits.
Absolutely.
Could you tell the audience, why is workplace safety such a big deal? How does that translate into employers keeping their profit?
Yes. So there's a couple of spaces. So what we just talked about in terms of, just getting into the field. Well, if I'm an employee and I see the doctor that I would go see when I'm injured, I can see like, hey, they probably actually do care. They took a second to even see what the heck I'm doing. So the amount of money people or businesses spend on employee retention, and since the pandemic, how it's heightened. So employees have a greater expectation for workplace safety. And there was a McKinsey and Company study where I think it was like number 8 or 9 on the list of reasons why people would leave was workplace safety. And it was in one of the top 5 reasons people would choose their new job. So that's one. 2, for our publicly traded companies, environmental safety or environmental social governance, ESG. That is such a big deal. Health and safety falls within the S, which is in that social realm. And banks are actually saying, if you're not meeting ESG, you're not getting financing. And if you can't get financing, your shareholders are not pleased. So if they're pulling out, then you're also losing financing. So the best thing to do is govern your business well, protect the environment, and protect the social realm of it as well.
Now, Subena, the services that your company provides, would those satisfy the ESG requirements that an employer might be needing help with?
Oh, absolutely. So we can't do all of it. Governance is really on how the business is managed, how the finances are managed, and there are other components of community involvement and representation that fall within the S. However, we do have those conversations with our publicly traded companies to say, how can this become a value to your brand? So investors, especially early investors, so we have more retail investors. So the people that can get on Robinhood, or myself, I'm on Fidelity and I'm like, yes, I'm going to buy these stocks, right? Well, what we're learning about the folks that are younger is that they are putting more emphasis on companies that are doing good, and that they will move away from companies that are not. And so how can we implement or improve your health and safety programs, create incredible safety cultures, and utilize that to your benefit as well? And so we're asking those questions, we're telling the story, we're asking for the commitment across the board. And that's part of the reasons why. They don't have to. If that's not a part of what they want to do, they're like, hey, this is regulatory compliance. However, there's definitely room to capitalize on that in terms of image.
Nice. And Subena, you've worked in multiple areas, not just corporate and the Air Force, but you've been able to see how different companies champion or don't champion workplace safety. What do you think some of the most common pitfalls are
Ooh, so I would say one of the most common pitfalls is this idea that you can overspend on safety. And it's this there was a particular person that embodied this where they said they just wanted basically they just wanted the cheapest solution, the easiest way to get it done. However, they demanded different for the products they were developing. And so from an ideology standpoint, it wasn't consistent, right? For the brand that they were building, but then wanting to cut corners. And so we just need to follow through and be consistent. And from there, not cutting corners is a thing, but really delivering the same message across the board, because how you do one thing is how you do everything.
So
And
good.
people know that, they see it and they feel it. So if you're not respecting them and their safety, then why is it that they should put the priority on the quality of the products that make you money if they're not a priority? It's one of those pitfalls that we see.
And so often it also spans not only from the product, but to the employees as well. Because they're like, yeah, you're not creating an environment of safety, so you don't care about me. So therefore, why would I put in additional effort to help bring the company to the level that I know it can go to? So you talked about, okay, cutting corners, people focusing more on the cheapest option rather than the more high quality option. So if we were to look at the opposite of that, how would you describe the ideal culture where workplace safety is really at the heart of what the company and the leadership team are trying to achieve versus this little cute catchphrase that we just throw out to kind of virtue signal to everybody else that we're doing the right thing?
Yes. So there's a difference in culture from saying safety first and safety being a core value. And so these ideal systems, you have management and leadership commitment, which is something that you have to have because they're the ones that are writing the checks, they're making the decisions, and people are following their lead, right? They are creating the measurements of the entire system. And then you have your health and safety program itself, where you have hazard identification, hazard prevention, controls, all of that. But then you have this other component of worker participation. And that's where you really see the systems be different because there's not a fear of reprisal and they are given all of the information they need to have a safe work environment. And so these are the employees where you are anything, they own it. And they see you, if you're not doing something safely, no matter who you are in the company, you can be the CEO, you can say, hey, I don't feel comfortable with you walking into this space because you have on high heels and we have areas where if you fall, you could be injured, right? And that's the beautiful space that we get to see. And a lot of times those are the folks that you see sticking around for a really long time. So they love what they do. They love where they're working. They love the role that they play. And then they take newer people under their wings. And they want them to be a part of the system. They want them to have the same information and knowledge, and they're mentoring them because they know that if they can just pass on this information, it will consistently follow through. So when we get to see those systems, it's just so much fun. And they're engaged, they're involved, they're coming up with solutions. They're not just complaining about things because nothing gets done. They see that their management and leadership cares, they get things done, and they own the safety for themselves and for those around them.
Yeah, what you are describing is truly beautiful. And I think
And it exists.
That it exists. And that should be so encouraging to the employers who are listening. And Subena, do you work with smaller organizations, larger organizations? Does it matter?
No, so we primarily focus on manufacturers, though we have universities in our system, tech companies as well. And the size of the organization is not the concern. It's about the level of commitment to people's workplace safety.
Wow. And if folks want to reach out to you and work with you or get more information, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. So you can find me Subena Colligan. I don't know that there's another Subena Colligan on there with my spelling. And then ehstransformationconsultants.com. And we also have a newsletter that you can sign up for. So we send emails out and just talk about transformation, health and safety, and providing more of that information and knowledge to folks. We hope to help shift the mindset one person at a time.
Well, Subena, it has been a true pleasure having you on the show today, and I thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, until next time, everyone. Bye.